I'd say there's nothing more exhausting and tiring than holding on to limiting mindsets when you are going after an unlimited life. It's actually 10 times easier to take radical responsibility than it is to take a little bit of responsibility. Sometimes we think that if I want to have a 2x life, I'm going to have to 2x my output. And if I want a 10x life, I'm going to have to 10x my output, but it just doesn't work that way. And what if a 10x mindset was to stop viewing life as a struggle, but a magical adventure? What if you were stopped trying to get to a place where you're like, I just need to get to this goal and finish it and be done with it, and I just need to be that kind of guy? And what if you saw it as an infinite journey for the rest of the ages where you're committed to growth, improvement, and becoming all that you could be, and you knew that this was going to be going on forever and ever and ever? All right, what's up, guys? I had a few of you say some things that I wanted to comment on. And so although my goal is to keep this brief and concise, I hope that wherever this meets you, whether you're tired, you're burnt out, you're feeling victim, you're feeling just exhausted, you're feeling like there's so much that you want to do and that you want to become that you just are not yet still, and it feels like it's blaring in front of you, I made this video for you because there's a theme that I've been seeing from some of you guys that taking responsibility is really, really hard, to the point that it just feels like a burden, and it feels exhausting, and it feels like you're burning out, and that it seems like a cycle, a pattern, if you will, that's emerging and that's uprooting and coming up or showing, is that being the victim or feeling lazy and letting life just take you and pass you by seems to be the narrative. Now, I want to get to a few different things, so there's not one overall theme here, but there's a few. Actually, I'd say there is a broader theme, but I want to hit on a few different ways. So the point of what I want to tell you on immediately is that the weight of difficulty of changing yourself comes because of the way we're thinking about it. It's actually 10 times easier to take radical responsibility than it is to take a little bit of responsibility. Sometimes we think that if I want to have a 2x life, I'm going to have to 2x my output. And if I want a 10x life, I'm going to have to 10x my output. But it just doesn't work that way. That would be a very fixed mindset, like an employee. Because if you think about it, you're trading, as an analogy here, as an employee, you're trading time for dollars. So let's just say you are Johnny and you have a job working at like Whole Foods for $20 an hour. I don't know what they actually get paid. I'm just making this up. Okay. So for every 60 minutes that Johnny works, he gets paid $20. So that is you put in 1 hour, you get out $20 equation. And if you want $40, what are you going to have to do? You're going to have to put in 2 times the amount of effort, 120 minutes, 2 hours worth of work. And it works that way as an employee, but it doesn't work that way if you're a CEO. You don't equate the time that you put in to the result that you're getting. It's a completely different way of thinking about it. Otherwise, Elon Musk, would be billions of years old because of the billions of dollars that he's accrued and amassed and made. I think he's like the richest guy, $247 billion. But he's not necessarily working more than the guy who's working 80 hours a week at a minimum wage job. Let's just do the math here, right? So a guy who's working $20 an hour times 80 hours a week, that's $1,600 a week. You times that by the 4 weeks there are in a month, that's $6,400 a month. Times that over 12 months, that's $76,000 a year. He's working 80 hours a week for $20 an hour. Elon Musk is arguably working around the same, 80 hours a week, but he's not making $76,000 a year. He's not even making $1 million or $10 million or $100 million. He's got a net worth of $250 billion, not because he's thinking that the more time he puts in, that it's going to double his result, but because people who live a high-level life have high-level mindsets. They have high-level ways of thinking. And so what got us into the mess isn't going to be the same thing that gets us out of the mess. And so I'm going to read a couple things from some of you guys that I heard. I'm going to name you and call you out because I want you to feel seen and also know that your context is different than your content. A lot of the people in life, and I've done this myself so many times, is we think the content, the emotions, the things that we're feeling, the things that we experience, the thoughts that come our way, right? All of that is the context. That's the content. And we believe that determines who we are rather than the context of actually who we really are in our identity. And so a big idea here is to have something that in the psychology space would be called psychological flexibility, where you can separate yourself from the content, where you as the context, you as the individual, the child of God, the man of God, right, who is pure, who is loved, who is chosen, who is holy, who is righteous, who was beautifully and wonderfully made by an amazing God. Like, God is your dad, right? How many of you guys would want a billionaire as your dad? Okay, well, you have God. You have the God of the universe, right? King of Kings as our father. Way, 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 way better, right? But we allow the content, the things we feel, the things that we think, or not even the things that we think, the thoughts that come to us that are now in our mind, and we assume that that's what we are. So Travis Smith, you said here, I seem stuck in the victim mentality still. I've been in pilot mode, staying in my laziness, self-pity, and just feeling hopeless. Okay, pause you. You got more there I'm going to read. But he says, I seem stuck in the victim mentality still. I've been in pilot mode, staying in my laziness, self-pity, and just feeling hopeless. See what's happening here? You are a context, okay? You are an individual. You're going through a difficult time, maybe a difficult season, which is okay. It's normal. It happens to everybody on the planet. It happened to Jesus. It happened to the disciples. It's going to happen to our kids and our grandkids, if we have those. But what our biggest mistake that we're making is that we are identifying the context of who we are with what we're going through. And so you are making that content now your identity. The content is that there is laziness that you perceive, you're in pilot mode, and victim mentality, and you are making it yours. You're saying, I am still staying in my laziness. So what you're saying is that you are identifying, you are making now the context, the person, the individual, the identity, that thing in which you feel, which is lethargic, which is unmotivated, which is lazy, which is apathetic, which is indifferent. And that's a dangerous place. I would love for you, and I would love to know what it would look like for you to separate yourself from the thoughts and feelings that you feel, knowing that thoughts and feelings are there for you to feel, but not for you and I to be dominated by. Let's keep going. I let my emotions dictate what I do for the day, of course. And you let them dictate what you do. And it makes perfect sense, by the way, Travis. Why? Because you're making the content the context. You are making the emotion the human, the person, the identity. And that's going to get us all mixed up, because then we're going to identify with what we feel, right? Rather than just feel it. And I think sometimes we got to view, not I think, but I know that we need to view our thoughts and view emotions from a third-party person, right? If someone else is, let's just say, having a rough day, I don't have to have a rough day, but I can empathize with them for it. And be like, oh, well, just because they're having a rough day doesn't mean I need to. And because I'm seeing it from a different context, a different point of view. I'm seeing the content of their life from the context of mine. And so in the same way, when we look at thoughts, we need to know that we are not the originator of the thoughts. We are not the birther of our thoughts. We are not the, did I say originator? We did not bring out the blueprint. We did not manufacture these thoughts. We didn't ask for these thoughts, but they came to us. So almost kind of like a waterfall where water is just pouring down. I'd love for you to imagine your thoughts like that. Like you're just watching them on a screen in front of you, like they're on a movie. They're not yours. They're not intrinsic. They're not a part of who you are, but they're what you're watching right now. And that's a really big key. Now let's keep going. So he said here, I look at the overall whole I dug myself in and all the areas of my life, and it just feels so discouraging. Like, how am I ever going to change this life that I have created over the years around? Okay, so again, this is the fixed mindset, the employee mindset. By the way, a lot of love, so much compassion and empathy for you, Travis, because I think you are speaking what so many people don't know maybe how to articulate. So you have great awareness about this, but obviously, you don't want to just be aware of the crap that you're in. You probably and most definitely want to change it. So let's think of it this way. You're saying it's taken me years and years to get into this mess. So how am I possibly going to get out? It's the same way. It's like, how can I make $1 million? Well, I'm going to have to work probably, 200,000 hours to make $1 million. I don't actually know what the math is, but my point is you are seeing this from a fixed mindset, an employee mindset of I trade my time for money. And because it's taken you years to get into this mess, you're perceiving, rightfully so, from a fixed place, but we want to get you into an unfixed mindset. We want to get you into an unlimited mindset, that you're going to have to put in so much more time, so much more energy, so much more effort, and it's simply not true, right? Because if you want to make billions of dollars, you don't have to work for trillions of hours or millions upon millions of hours. You just got to see and think and operate your life and primarily your mindset, because that's where the game of life is played. If you guys have seen the movie The Long Game, it came out like a year or two ago about these golfers, true story, in like 1953 or whatever, who went on to go win their high school championship for over state, actually. But there's a famous golfer named Bobby something who said to the effect of, the game of golf is played on a 5-inch course, right? 5-inch course in between our mind. And that's where most of life is played. And so I would just like to propose to you the idea, Travis, that it is 10 times easier to build a life you want than to stay stuck. It's 10 times easier to get out than to remain where you are. It's actually a fallacy to say that if it took you years to get in, it's going to take you years to get out. Why? Because something called micro shifts with compounding effect is real, where if you do a little bit, you can actually turn a lot. Like, think of a ship, right? A ship is massive, but it's got a tiny little rudder on it on the back, which can steer and veer. So when we view this as a tiring, gruesome, long journey that we want to have an end in sight towards, it's going to be difficult. But if you view it from a perspective where you are playing an infinite game, not a finite game, that there is no end to this, but it's literally like, it's just an enjoyable game that you get to play forever, you get to enjoy forever, you're going to live forever, and you're just expanding and growing and becoming, it actually can become so much easier and so much more simple than you think. And because when you see that you're in a rut, sometimes when we have a really big negative, let's just say emotional state or an emotional content, we want to believe that it's going to take something massive and big and arduous in order to get out, in order to justify how we feel. But what if I told you that it's not going to take something massive to get you out of this massively negative state? It could just take something really simple, like water, like a shower, like a nap, like a better night's sleep, like working out, going to the gym, going on a run, jumping into the ocean. If you're somewhere where it's cold, doing a cold plunge. It's little things that we can do to shift our state, because if you can begin to change your state, as Tony Robbins would say, then you can begin to change your story, which I believe is really, really, really crucial. And so once you change the context of how you feel within yourself, you'll be changing the content that you experience. So when you say like how am I ever going to change this life that I've created over the years around? We're like, well, you'll change it the same way that you created it, by making simple, defining decisions, right? When people talk about destiny, I always like to say that your destiny is never determined. People think, well, God has a destiny for my life. I'm like, well, it depends how you define the term destiny. I'd say he has an overall plan, an overall theme, an overall purpose. And by the way, in Jeremiah 29:11, where it talks about, I know the plans I have for you, declares the Lord, it's actually two things. Number one, he's not talking to a single individual. He's talking to a whole nation. He's talking to Israel. Number two is that root word plan is actually the root word purpose. And so there's not one plan that God has that you can like mess and screw up, but it's very low stakes in that he has a purpose for your life and like 100,000 million different plans on ways of getting you there. So there's a lot of creativity, a lot of discovering, a lot of expansion that can happen within this. And I wouldn't underestimate a little shift being able to change it all for you. Sometimes if we want a big change, you think you got to make a really big decision, but you don't. Sometimes you just got to move the needle ever so slightly. Again, it could be just setting your alarm and waking up for 30 minutes a day to get your mind right, to just work on that. And that can carry you over and have a long compounding effect. Alex Myrie, you said this is a fulfilling journey, but it's tiring and exhausting. I have to be honest. And then you mentioned you've been growing in other ways, but this way has been difficult for you. And I love the honesty there, that it's been tiring and exhausting. Obviously, things are being uprooted. You're working through mindsets, but I'd say there's nothing more exhausting and tiring than holding on to limiting mindsets when you are going after an unlimited life. The reason that people are able to effortlessly flow into what they want with abundance, with grace, with ease, is because they view life not as a struggle, but a magical adventure where all of their needs are met with grace and ease. And I wonder what it would look like if we were to shift our mindset from viewing life as a struggle, from viewing this as tiring. Because if you view it as tiring and exhausting, right, that part in your brain, the reticular activating system, you have these provers that are going to prove it to be true everywhere you go. And so if we have those going on within us, and we're saying this is tiring, this is exhausting, you're going to start to feel tired and exhausted. And so one of the ways that we can primarily change our life is by our words, because our words create worlds. Chris Valentin said that our words create worlds, and it becomes a self-fulfilling prophecy. So my question is how can we make life more simple? How can we make life more fun? And you'll find that it's not necessarily by adding in more, but by actually taking out more. More isn't always more. You ever had like a cream that you put on your face or something, maybe an ointment, maybe you were hurt and you had to like bandage up, and then they're like, hey, put this on, but don't use a lot. More or less is more. Less goes a long way. A little goes a long way. If you do more, it's actually not going to do the effect that you want at all. It could make it worse, right? And so in some ways, less is actually way more. More is not always more, because it's going to make you tired. It's going to make you exhausted. I wonder if part of the reason that this is exhausting and tiring is because you think you have to be putting in so much more, right? Would you rather put in 5 hours a day towards a job that pays you $20 an hour? Or would you rather put in 1 hour a day to a job that pays you $100 an hour? Different levels of time, but the same result. Why? Because to the person, let's just say, who's working for $20 an hour at Whole Foods, he's stocking shelves, and that's a great job. But maybe if you're like the senior marketer for Whole Foods, you get paid $100 an hour. Again, I don't know, I'm just making this up, but it's the same goal to grow Whole Foods and the company, but a different role within it. And so if you are getting the same results over and over and over again, it's not that you're inept. It's not that you suck. It's that we are using systems that are inept and suck in order to get us to a different place that we want to be. So my question is how can you make your life in a way that feels invigorating, that feels fun, that feels life-giving, that feels simple, and that feels like really, really, really works for you? You're going to find that it's not about doing more. It's about becoming more and doing less. It's about understanding and tapping into your psychology. Like, for example, that one quote that I shared, I can't remember who I heard it from, so it didn't come from me, that it says, the true definition of wealth is not just about having a lot of money. It's seeing life not as a struggle, this is a quote, but as a magical adventure where every single one of your needs is met with grace and ease, where you see opportunity in everything you do. You don't just see that life is hard, life is bad. You don't just resonate with the dude in the book of Job and you're like, oh, woe is me. But you actually, like Jesus, had joy, more joy than all of his companions. What would it look like if we were to live life that way? And again, not hustle and muscle and fight and flex and get into it, but just yield and surrender to like, okay, Lord, there's likely a life for me where things become simple, where things can flow, and I don't have to do a lot more. Like, what if I told you that in order to have a 10x life from what you want to do, you don't have to do more. You just have to become more and do less. That you need to do things that actually move the needle. So instead of trying to work out for 2 hours a day and doing a cold plunge and doing an hour of reading and doing your affirmations and, spending all this time on content and what if you just got really focused on what this next season was about, this next time frame, the next few months, what the biggest thing that you wanted to accomplish, and what the one thing is that you needed to do in order to move the needle the most, and then cut out everything that's getting in your way. So you could simply delete all the apps on your phone, YouTube, TikTok, Reddit, Tumblr, Twitter, all of those things, delete it all from your phone. Another one could be that you have a regimented time, a schedule to adhere by on when you go to bed and when you wake up. You're like, I go to bed every single night at 10 p.m. maximum. I'm in my bed. My phone is not with me. My alarm goes off at 6 a.m. and I am up to get an hour and a half of time for myself. I am reading this book and I'm doing this, and boom, that could already set you hugely on your day, and have fun with it. Like, figure out what can make you work, and have things go better, whether it's a cold shower, whether you go on a walk, go on a run, whether you want to read for 20 minutes, it doesn't matter. But if you have that an allotted time of 1 hour or hour and a half every single morning that's just for you, and you want to use it to better yourself, you're like, I'm not on my phone, I'm not doing any of that, then look at that. Look how fun that could really be, right? I do believe that the best way to grow is when you perceive it as fun, when you perceive it as life-giving, as in some ways effortless, again, because there's grace behind it. There's not a ton of force, but you're actually in power, right? So you're not trying to manufacture something that's not unique for you. You're trying to walk in the thing that's already been made for you. Like God wants you to have what you want. Life wants you to have what you want, to become who you want to be. The only thing that needs to happen is letting go of the debilitating thoughts that are preventing us from having the life we want to live. So a debilitating thought, going back to Travis here, is saying, I'm staying in my laziness. Don't identify with that. That's not who you are. It might have been who you've been, but it's not who you are. And if you are trying to achieve results based on a past identity, it's never going to work. Here's a fun quote for you, and I'll leave with this. Leonardo DiCaprio, he says this quote, "The next level of life always requires a different level of you." Let me read that again. The next level of life always requires a different level of you. All we need to be willing to do is to grow and adapt and change and become different now, so we can step into, again, not about doing more, it's about becoming more. And then by doing that, we do less and achieve way more than we could possibly ask, think, dream, or imagine, because you are 10xing your mindset. And what if a 10x mindset was to stop viewing life as a struggle, but a magical adventure? What if you were stopped trying to get to a place where you're like, I just need to get to this goal and finish it and be done with it, and I just need to be that kind of guy? And what if you saw it as an infinite journey for the rest of the ages, where you're committed to growth, improvement, and becoming all that you could be, and you knew that this was going to be going on forever and ever and ever? Because if you knew it was an infinite game, you wouldn't put a finish line to it, and it would become something so much more that you would enjoy, right? The goal of getting married isn't to just get married. It's to never get divorced, and it's to enjoy someone all the days you have on earth. For having kids, with parenting, the goal isn't that you just have obedience from your kids and boom, they listen to everything you say. It's to have strong, intimate connection with them, right? To create memories. So the goal of parenting isn't that you just have a kid for 18 years and they're out and you're like, finally finished, I'm done, right? The goal is that you'd be able to journey with them throughout life and shape and mold them and believe in them. And it's a never-ending journey. And when you view it that way, parenting and marriage becomes way less exhausting, because you're not trying to see it as something with a finish line, but you're seeing it as something that's a never-ending, beautiful, bountiful journey, a magical adventure, if you will. Dare I say it, fun, exciting, exhilarating, filled with so many challenges. But you get to set your course and you get to determine what path might work best for you. There's this movie called Arthur the King. I'll just finish with this statement. And if you haven't seen the movie, I'd really encourage you to do so. But it's based off a true story where they run this race. And it's like 400 miles, I believe, or something like that, within like a 5 to 10 day period. And they have to start from one point in a certain place or location in the world and get to the other. But the only idea here, the only, what would the word be? I forget. But the premise is that you're in a teams of 4 and that you choose your course. The only caveat I'd say to this race is that you choose the direction. Nobody chooses it for you. There's roads, there's rivers, you can bike, you can swim, you can kayak, you can run, you can mountain climb. There's so many things that you can do, but you choose the course. You have someone who does navigation, someone who's team lead, and so on and so forth. And from that place, your team of 4 is supposed to get, and you're competing against like dozens and dozens of other teams to win first place on a prize. But what's cool about that is that's much like life. It's like, here's the finish line, or here's where you want to be. Here's where you want to get to, right? The life you want to live, the type of person you want to be, the life you want to create. Dude, if you saw this as a tiring, exhausting journey, you wouldn't even leave the blockers. You wouldn't even get off because you're like, oh, this sucks. This is so hard. And I'm like, but if you're creating it, if you're creating what you want, you know that this is meant to be life-giving and beautiful. You'd be like, dude, where do we want to set our sights next? Do we want to go across that river? It looks dangerous, but it also looks pretty fun. Do we want to scale that mountain and see what's on the other side? Maybe there's a zip line across and we can absolutely send it. And then in this movie, Arthur the King, it's about them finding a stray dog that they took with them. I'm like, dude, that's also pretty dang magnificent and beautiful, where along the road and the journey of life that is a magical adventure, you get to embark on a quest where you meet the most wonderful humans and create the most wonderful, beautiful life. So it's not about doing more, it's about becoming more. And by becoming more, you can achieve more by doing less. I love you tons. Hopefully that makes some sense. I will catch you in the next one. Hey, real quick, if you like that video that you just saw, or if you want to see even better videos than this, you can subscribe, hit the notification bell so you don't forget any alerts, comment, like, all that jazz, and more importantly, check out the next video that's going to take you even further on the journey from where you are to where you want to be. I love you tons. I'll catch you in the next one.